The profound and wondrous Dharma is rarely encountered, even in 100 million kalpas. Having it to hear, accept, and maintain, may I taste the truth of the Tathagata's words. Good morning, and welcome to Stone Creek. As some of you may have heard, the venerable Buddhist teacher and peace activist Thich Nhat Hanh passed away at the age of 95. And he made tremendous contributions to contemporary Buddhism. And so let's just take a few breaths here to acknowledge his passing. Thank you. I have a new mic today, so we'll see how that goes. The last time I've tried using it once and it stopped working in the middle of the talk. So please just, if I go silent, just unmute yourself and let me know. That'd be really great. So earlier this month, I gave 2 talks through Zoom at Upaya Zen Center in Santa Fe, and they were both on the song of the Precious Mirror Samadhi, or the Jewel Mirror Samadhi song, which is part of our regular chanting rotation and part of Soto Zen liturgy for a few hundred years, 300 years or so. And I was invited to do this because of Wendy Johnson, and also because of a detailed translation study I made of this poem about 19 years ago when I was living at Tassajara. And I made it because of everything we chanted. It was the most mysterious or confounding. And so I thought, well, I'm just gonna spend more time with it. And I don't know if it became less mysterious or less confounding, but at some point I decided I would make a study as a way to engage with it. So I made a very detailed, it's like 150 pages, small font size study of the Jewel Mirror Samadhi. And then the kind of discipline and devotion and maybe some obsession that was involved in this kind of project, thinking back on that now, I feel an ancestral connection to my family name, to Pokorny, which in Czech and Polish has meanings like humble, disciplined, subservient, and servile. And I also feel an ancestral connection to Dungshan. And Dungshan's the author of the Jewel Mirror Samadhi, traditionally regarded as the author. He lived in the 9th century in China, and he's honored as a source of Soto Zen. So Dungshan or Tozan is his mountain name, and the To of Soto comes from this To of Tozan, his mountain name, Mount Dung. But Dungshan's Dharma name is Liangjie or Ryokai, which means good or virtuous servant. I thought like a good Pokorny. So the study was my way of serving the Jewel Mirror Samadhi. And at the time, I made it for the students at Tassajara, and I thought it would kind of basically stay at Tassajara, but it has come into its own life of circulation on the internet, especially in US Zen centers. And so the opening lines of the Jewel Mirror Samadhi express the heart of Soto Zen. So the opening lines are, the Dharma of thusness is intimately transmitted by Buddhas and ancestors. Now you have it. Preserve it well. So I just want to spend a minute talking about these lines. So we have this term thusness, a kind of wonderfully vague expression. Thusness, or actually the literal Chinese translation of thusness, or tatata in Sanskrit, is like this. It's like this. And so it's kind of circular, where it's pointing without really specifying or defining or delimiting. And this is part of how the Buddhist tradition takes care of this liberating truth, which is ungraspable and right here. Never hidden, but also can't get it. So it's thusness, and so we have a Dharma of thusness, and Dharma can mean teaching, truth, reality, and also method or practice. So we have a teaching, a truth, reality, and or practice of thusness. And that's what's intimately conveyed, intimately entrusted, given, or passed on, communicated in the Buddhist tradition. Especially, especially for us, Zen. And then there's this affirmation, now you have it. And then an exhortation to practice, preserve it well. And preserve here, it's two Chinese characters, and it could also be translated as like protect, guard, shelter, maintain, assist, and nourish. And also actually what resonates for me most right now is care for. So care for it well. And the whole Jewel Samadhi can be seen as just unfolding. How do we care for the Dharma of thusness? How do we care for the truth and the practice and the teaching of thusness in our life with all beings? And so today I want to speak to kind of like three intertwining ways of how we care for the Dharma of thusness. And so one is embodied practice realization. Two is inquiry. And three is communal relational practice. And these three aspects, embodied realizational practice, inquiring, shared relational engagement, can be seen as a way of unfolding the three treasures, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So starting with practice realization, so this is the key teaching of Dogen. So now you have it, expresses the faith of practice realization. So rather than practice being something I do to move towards and finally attain awakening that I don't have, now I don't have it, and practice is something I do to get it. This is now you have it. And so then practice is this practice of awakening. Cutting through, instrumental or transactional approaches to practice and the path and awakening. Or, cutting through the tendency to do something for the sake of something else. The idea of awakening as a goal and as some graspable thing different from what I grasp as this. Pushing for results, or just getting it done, I miss my life. I miss the Dharma of thusness, right here. So in Soto Zen, we hold up, sitting upright in Zazen as the primordial embodiment of practice, of Buddha's sitting. And this practice realization is a path. Attaining awakening or a breakthrough is not a path. Experience is not a path. A path is what we do, how we live, how we actualize awakening in our lives together. in our relations. And part of the problem of an instrumental approach to practice, or any approach with steps and stages of attainment, is that progression or hierarchy can become reductive. The higher can reduce or minimize the lower. The goal can reduce or devalue the means, the path. Each step on the path, each moment of this life, this moment right here. So the spirit of practice realization, the spirit of now you have it, is to value and honor the life of practice right here. And that it's not for something else. That's not the spirit of this practice. It's not to get somewhere else. It's not to become someone else. It's this deep affirmation of, a fullness, a practice of being fully here, of complete presence. The title of the song, the Jewel Mirror Samadhi, has this term samadhi in it. Samadhi can be translated concentration, absorption, or more broadly, maybe as awareness. And but I want to offer a caution about hearing samadhi as a mental factor or a mental state associated with realization or awakening, because of how this can be apprehended, through a frame of separating mind and body, or mind and body and heart. So I would offer, and there's very much how samadhi can be discussed in some contexts. But in Soto Zen, and the song of the Jewel Mirror Samadhi, I want to offer samadhi as an awake body, heart, and mind. Or we could say samadhi is like zazen as the embodied communal enactment of awakening. So not just a mental state, and not even just an individual thing. It's not individualistic or internal. The samadhi of the precious mirror is radically relational, and it's embodied, a whole being awakening to an actualization of the unbounded extent of our relationality. So this is a samadhi that's not limited to intensive meditative cultivation. It can live and grow in daily life. It can pop up while crossing a creek, or unfold on a walk, or a drive, or a talk, or sweeping the floor. And I think I've also, in my last talk, I mentioned appreciating presencing as a translation of Genjo in Genjo Koan. And I feel that may also be a way to hear samadhi, presencing the dynamic jewel mirror. And so zazen, or samadhi, or practice realization, are not confined to being mental events or cognitive events, but whole being engagement. And the Dogen scholar Hee-Jin Kim talks about actional understanding. And so this is an understanding that arises through or as embodied activity, as actually engaging the activity of zazen, or bowing, or chanting, or anything we do. So this is now you have it, care for it well, as like presencing the Dharma of thusness with this body, heart, mind, exactly as they are right here. So I feel this as devotional, as and this spirit of caring rather than attaining, or giving rather than getting. Not trying to make the Dharma of thusness happen or appear or arise, but to care for it. And care for it is what brings us to practice, and what brings us through practice, like our actual heart of connection. Or like emptiness as it, funneled, through a human heart into a yearning, a call. Ask not what the jewel mirror samadhi can do for me, but what can I do for the jewel mirror samadhi? Or how do I become a good servant, or a ryokai, or a good pakorni of the jewel mirror samadhi? A good, humble, diligent caregiver of thusness, which is the real life of my life. In case 94 of the Book of Serenity, Dungshan, our hero for today, good servant, was not well. And a monk asked, "You are ill, teacher, but is there anyone who does not get ill?" And Dungshan said, "There is." And the monk said, "Does the one who is not ill look after you?" Dungshan said, "I have the opportunity to look after him." The monk said, "How is it when you look after him?" And Dungshan said, "Then I don't see that he has any illness." So I hear Dungshan he's ill. There's someone who's not ill. Does that one take care of me? No, I take care of that one. And how is that? Then I see this liberation from illness. So I feel Dungshan's liberated from illness, caring for the Dharma of thusness. Caring, and that the part of what he's seeing and looking after him is wholeheartedly being himself, wholeheartedly being not well. He sees the liberation, or realizes the liberation from illness right in being ill, and not by getting away from it or from some magical force undoing it. There's another ancestral creek story. I think I spoke about this last year, which is Dogen. Dogen would go down to the creek running by a heiji, and after drawing a dipper full of water, he would pour back half a dipper. And I feel this is like an embodied reflection in Dogen's life of Dungshan's life. So I forgot to mention, so Dungshan, he woke up while crossing a creek, seeing his reflection in the creek. And then he wrote a poem, and then later he wrote the Jewel Mirror Samadhi. And so the mirror part is going right back to Dungshan seeing his reflection in the creek. And here's Dogen with this practice of pouring back half a dipper of water. And so this presencing is relationality with the creek, with the water, embodying the emptiness of water. Where emptiness is not some reality out there. It's a relational mutuality, the intertwining of in here and out there. So pouring back a half dipper is a way of doing this. Now you have it, care for it well. And we can do anything, we do with this intimacy of pouring water into water. Or pouring myself into the world pouring itself into me, breathing and being breathed. And so in Soto Zen, we have forms of practice. They're forms to care for the Dharma of thusness, or to do the Dharma of thusness with this like actional understanding. It's actual doing. So actual sitting, or actual bowing, or eating, or cleaning, or pouring back water. And so there's a web of mutual intersupportiveness, of awakening in all forms of practice. Zazen, Doksan, ritual, Dharma talks, vowing, confession, dedication, and also in everyday life, in any action, in how we handle anything, in any act of kindness. And all of this is a challenge or like a lifelong engagement, a lifelong journey because of the depth and extent of grasping and delusion and how they're elaborated and interwoven into like my views and reactivity and action or karma. So this comes up in the Jewel Mirror Samadhi in a number of ways. Like it says, move and you are trapped, go against it and you fall into doubt. A hair's breadth deviation and you are out of tune. Outside still and inside trembling, like tethered colts or cowering rats. Led by their inverted views, they take black for white. Failure to serve is no help. So these are kind of the images from the Jewel Mirror Samadhi of our process of delusion and grasping. And so practice realization is not to ignore or suppress or deny or destroy delusion and grasping, but intimacy, gentle, kind, accepting, welcoming intimacy, a thorough intimacy. So working and feeling with care through the trembling and pain and fear and grasping and groping. And discomfort in all its forms. With, soft eyes and a soft heart and a soft belly. And this is practice realization. Genjo Korin says, Buddhas have great realization of delusion. So Zazen is this embodied enactment of awakening, intimately and dynamically feeling into the fullness of greed, hate, and delusion. Not to get past it, but as the realizational activity of awakening. And so embodied presence, full, warm, welcoming to like whatever is happening here in this body, mind, heart. This is actional understanding of now you have it. So the presence fully includes suffering in presencing the koan, in presencing the truth, presencing the Dharma of thusness. And this unfolds as a process of healing and release with many layers. So in the language of the Jewel Mirror Samadhi, many layers of doubt and confusion, hair's breadth deviation, inward trembling, taking black for white, failure to serve. And so this simple practice fills myriad lifetimes, because these are forms of grasping and delusion can be so deep and elaborated. So next I want to turn to inquiry as questioning and curiosity, a process of opening, the active function of not knowing, an enlivening sense of doubt of, how I practice at my edges and limits. And it's exploratory because genuine inquiry does not know what it's inquiring into or towards. And it can be dynamic because it can open through or across, any way I might try to direct or delimit it. I might think inquiry is going this way, but the living inquiry is actually might just totally open that whole thing up, or it might just go up or go down. It's not, because it's also aimed at myself. The Jewel Mirror Samadhi says, the meaning does not reside in the words, but a pivotal moment brings it forth. And the language of a pivotal moment is particularly intense here. And so there's many different translations. But the translation that actually we used to chant at Tassajara was, the meaning is not in the words, yet it responds to the inquiring impulse. And so this translation lives in my heart, this inquiring impulse. And so there's this meaning. And the meaning is not in the words. The meaning is not in the words like the Dharma of Thusness or now you have it. Just grasping that won't give us the meaning. The Dharma of Thusness isn't like a static meaning to grasp through words. It lives through my inquiring impulse with my wholehearted engagement. It's in it and it meets it and it arises, inseparably from it. So this Dharma of Thusness has no life or function in the world apart from this practice and actualization. If I hold back from the world and this moment, the world seems to hold back from me. And when I give myself completely to this moment, the world gives itself to me. So inquiry as arriving at the pivot of this moment, or how any instant is a pivotal moment. And so caring for the Dharma of Thusness is caring for a spirit of deep inquiry, cultivation of curiosity and questioning and opening, and sitting in the fire of some tension or some contradiction or some ambiguity. And connecting to the deepest seeking or the inmost request of my heart, and releasing from what's known or familiar or comfortable. And so if I know what I'm looking for, I'm not really looking. So to really look and to not grope for closure. And so there's this opening to boundless potential for intimacy and meaning. And becoming a radical learner. And I also see inquiry as like expansive allowing for complexity versus settling for reductive or limiting oversimplifications. Or the other kind of motto that's come up for me is resisting the seduction of reduction. And seeing this spirit of inquiry in terms of practice realization. So engaging inquiry as an activity of awakening, as the life of awakening. So Zazen is awakening, inquiring into the embodied actualization of awakening. And I also particularly like this expression of inquiring impulse, so it can include a verbal question, but also an inquiring quality of presence or curiosity working at the limits of, what I can see or feel or sense or meet or manifest or express or question. And intimacy itself as a process of inquiry. Like what is here? What's happening? Am I fully present? Is this wholeheartedness? So the Dharma of Thusness is not a static, passive thing. A true nature, not a thing at all, but a life of relationality, living through, a human heart, body, mind. The heart of the Jewel Mirror Samadhi is a set of 2 couplets in the first half of the poem. It is like facing a precious mirror, form and reflection behold each other. You are not it, but in truth it is you. And so again, this form and reflection beholding each other. This is rooted in Dungshan's crossing the creek and seeing his reflection, looking back at him, and having a very vivid experience of his reflection, beholding him, and like knowing he's not that reflection, and then this awakening. Yet this reflection, this creek, this water, this whole event, sun, trees, moons, this is all me. So you are not it, but in truth, it is you. And here's this expression of non-duality. I'm not the whole universe, but I'm the whole universe, realized as this person. And I feel the spirit of inquiry kind of weaving through. Like, you are not it, but in truth it is you. You are not it, but in truth it is you. So kind of intertwining. You are not it, field of inquiry, but in truth it is you, field of inquiry. And they're feeding each other and constantly intertwining. To non-duality isn't like a static thing. It's alive with constant circulation. I recently came across a kind of theory about why pirates wear eye patches. If this is something that pirates, like real pirates, actually do, I don't know. But anyway, there is this thing of pirates wearing eye patches, lots of eye patches. And I think a general feeling that, well, they hurt their eyes in all sorts of pirating accidents. But then this other theory has come up that, well, they would wear eye patches because when they're attacking a ship, they would need one eye adapted to the light of day to like fight on deck, and one eye kind of pre-adapted to the darkness, so that when they went down below deck in the kind of battle, they would already be used to the dark, so that going below deck, switch the eye patch. This eye that's under the patch already adapted to darkness, and you can see and function. And some people did a test and they found this is actually true. You can actually have, like, if you wear a patch in one eye, you actually are more adapted to darkness if you suddenly switch environments. So that part's not a theory. So one eye for engaging and inquiring in the light, and one eye for engaging and inquiring in the dark. And switching the patch from eye to eye, from side to side, and inquiring, like, you are not it, but in truth it is you. And so it's kind of like this is a two-sided expression. So if I start getting comfortable and make a nest in one side, the other side's always there to give me a little poke, help me see my grasping. So each addresses an imbalanced apprehension of the other. And together, they're inseparable, but we don't want to resolve them. We don't want a final reconciliation, but just to allow a two-sided living inquiry to keep breathing and circulating through practice and my life. Non-duality, can sound like a self-contradictory term because this prefix non, this is a prefix of dualistic opposition. So it could sound like non-duality would be the opposite of duality. But that would be a very dualistic non-duality. So non-duality, or actual non-duality, is more dynamic than our dualistic version of non-duality. Non-dual practice is not settling into duality or avoiding duality. Engaging duality, going beyond duality, playing with duality, thoroughly exercising duality, and demonstrating or presencing non-duality in or through duality. And this, I think, and I feel the same dynamic with non-thinking. Non-thinking does not settle into thinking or avoiding thinking or trying to stop thinking. It's engaging thinking, going beyond thinking, playing with thinking, and presencing non-thinking in or through thinking. So inquiry, challenging, grasping, and limited views in all forms. And part of how it's important to practice together, the third and final thing I want to bring up, is it can be hard to maintain the dynamism of true inquiry by myself. And so, coming to this, communal relational practice, which was, the theme of the talk I gave in December. And I kind of want to bring it around again, bring it up here, because it doesn't show up so clearly in the Jewel Mirror Samadhi. And so I want to kind of highlight how this is vital to how we care for the Dharma of Thusness and what the Jewel Mirror Samadhi offers. And so this for Soto Zen, I feel this Jewel Mirror Samadhi as a social samadhi, a communal relational samadhi. And so it says, like, now you have it, but also now we have it. Now we have it. May we care for it well together. And so I see this as, speaking to the communal practice of Zazen, sitting together at the core of this tradition, and then also just reaching out to the myriad ways we can enact the Bodhisattva vow or presencing the Dharma of Thusness in like our everyday relational, compassion and kindness. So this, like, a dynamic, non-dual relationality as a vital core of the Jewel Mirror Samadhi, and bridging that to how we happen together in practice. So relationality is like, it's this deep theme in the Jewel Mirror Samadhi. A silver bowl filled with snow, a heron hidden in the moon. Form and image behold each other. You are not it, but in truth it is you. Drumming and singing fit together. Arrows meeting head on. When the wooden man begins to sing, the stone woman gets up to dance. Ministers serve their lords. Children obey their guardians. So there's all this relationality. And in December, I spoke about engaging Zazen, bowing, chanting, everyday relating as forms of shared inquiry. And inquiring into the Dharma of Thusness, as social or communal, because I am not you, yet, but in truth you are me. Or you are not me, but in truth I am you. So Sangha practice engaging the immediate and mutual sense in which we shape and transform each other. And that no one really practices alone. That doesn't make any sense. Bowing to each other, we are mirroring each other. We are mirrors for each other. We are, I am not you, yet you are me, mirrors for each other. It's an intersubjective mutuality of beholding each other. And this reminds me of Indra's net, where each eye or nexus point in the net is a jewel, and each jewel reflects every other jewel in the whole net. And each reflection of every jewel reflects all the other jewels and all the other reflections of all the other jewels in each jewel of the entire net. And so this is all of us and all beings as reflecting jewels or mirrors for each other in this vast net of I am not you, yet you are me. So happening together in intimate relationship, endlessly and mutually reflecting. And this net is not an objective thing. We're in the net. We are the net. And all presencing the Dharma of thusness is relational. To show up is always to show up in relation, in the shared space of our lives. All space is shared space. Everything I do is happening in a process of shared, collective, relational inquiry. About 20 years ago, I was on a pilgrimage in China, visiting Zen places with a group from San Francisco Zen Center. And we came to a spot along the creek where it is said that Dongshan saw his reflection. There was a marker. This is the spot where it happened. And just a few hundred yards from that spot was where he founded a monastic community. And so there's this dynamism of this moment with the creek that Dongshan was wandering around in doubt and questioning, had this moment with the creek, stopped wandering just a few hundred yards away in a little clearing, had a monastery built and started a community. A community of shared inquiry, devoted to caring for the Dharma of thusness. Engaging a communal embodied demonstration of the jewel mirror samadhi, of Dongshan's happening with his reflection. And so at the end here, I want to close with one more reflection of the jewel mirror samadhi, the jewel mirror non-duality, in something Suzuki Roshi said. He said, "You are perfect just as you are, and you could use a little improvement." So this is about our true nature and the practice of our true nature. Now you have it, and care for it well. Pokornying the Dharma of thusness. So you're perfect just as you are. How we are perfect as a dynamic, all-inclusive, changing wholeness, or how this aggregate of imperfections perfectly belongs here. And so Buddha's sitting under the Bodhi tree and touching the earth. Unconditional belonging in the universe. The tiger, taking to the mountain. Being home. And you could use a little improvement. What kind of improvement is this? And I think Suzuki Roshi may have said a little, just so that we wouldn't get really excited about this improvement, whatever it might be. And my own feeling is that in Soto Zen, we only have a little improvement, but it's a dynamic and endless little improvement. So you could use a little improvement endlessly, dynamically, unconfined by any fixed frame of opening or growth or connection or meaningfulness. We could use a little cutting through all delusions, a little entering all Dharma gates, a little realizing the boundless Buddha way, little freeing all beings. And so what's improvable is not our true nature, but the living of it. the living of it is endlessly improvable and endlessly criticizable. Always in a living conversation, turning and being turned. Always embodied relationality of shared inquiry. Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any comments, expressions, questions? Please. Sounds like he can talk. I can't hear David. Okay.
It looks like Douglas is unmuted, but we can't hear him. So maybe
I'm gonna try unplugging this. I'm not hearing anything for some reason. This wasn't what happened last time. Sorry. If someone's talking, they could try talking again. We haven't heard anything over here.
If you want to just test it out, are you hearing me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, I was just going to say, I was really sorry you kind of brought up those pirates, because that's all I've been thinking about since then, are the damn pirates, and how that really wouldn't work. Well, it's like, right? I mean, if you have a patch on your eye, you're like, you've lost your depth of vision. And if I were sword fighting, you have to have that, right?
Well, all I can tell you is some people did a test. They did a test where they
Who
did
are those people?
Mythbusters. So you can go on YouTube and see their
Okay.
test. They set up a dark room. They didn't wear an eye patch, and they went in and did a set of tasks, and they timed it.
Yeah,
They rearranged all the items in the room, but did the same set of tasks.
yeah.
Went in, having an eye patch, and then switched eyes much faster.
Oh,
So-
but if you were in a battle, it's like once my dad lost his right eye once, and I mean, he did. And we were driving along when I'd drive in the car with him, and he'd go past cars, and it's like he'd miss him by a, hair's breadth. It was like so scary, but you don't say anything to him. And so, if you were trying to fight and you couldn't see, from the patched part. Well, anyway, thanks for bringing up the pirates.
That's why they lost the legs and the arms.
Monty Python, yeah. Okay, I can also say, I think it's really interesting. This is just a general thing that I have been thinking about just over time. And your talk was really great because it really brought this up to me, was that you have these monks that are coming with these realizations or whatever. And it's so easy for them because they're isolated in a monastery, right? I mean, if I'm out here dealing with my computer or whatever, it's like really, we have a much harder time trying to realize this.
Yeah. Well, the kind of traditional view actually is when sometimes we feel like, well, going to the monastery is hard, but the traditional view is monastic practice is easy. And lay practice is what is hard because it's not all supported. If you live in a monastery, the whole environment's built to support practice. Lay life isn't like that. So you have to, but it's not impossible. It's just more challenging.
Definitely.
Yeah. And we're trying to do this.
Korin, thank you for your talk. Actually, this chant that we do in the mornings on some weeks is one of my favorites. Not that I understand it, so it was really helpful to have your talk to contemplate. One thing that struck me was when we did the New Year celebration and wrote things down. One of the things that came up for me is that I wanted to work on some closure in my life. And then you brought up that, not grasping for closure. And so I have to really realize that that's important. Part of my practice is to have a great curious inquiry into what is closure anyway. It's not doing away with something and it's gone forever. It's going to come back around again, but at least instead of being stuck in not wanting to deal with something because it's painful or for whatever reason in these areas of my life that I don't feel like I'm getting closure. I realize that from what you're saying, I think what it means, and you can tell me if you agree, that the practice of going toward closure is actually inquiry and a process, and there's never an end to it until dead.
Yeah. Well, I think everything you just said sounded to me like inquiry. Like what, and what, so I think there can be an urge towards. There can be moments of deep resolution. Sometimes things do close, but inquiry doesn't stop there. Life doesn't stop there. So there's still the next moment, and whatever resolved yesterday isn't resolved today necessarily. And so, and that we just don't want to miss our life aiming for that closure when there's all this life in between, and that actually, and in some ways, like, and I mean, I encourage you just to have that spirit of inquiry, that actually, like, the biggest closure could be the biggest opening, and things like that. Anyway, that's what comes.
Thank you.
Charlie?
Yes.
David here. Do you guys mind if I recite a poem that I just posted from Thich Nhat Hanh in the chat?
Yeah. Yes, please.
Tomorrow, I will continue to be, but you will have to be very attentive to see me. I will be a flower or a leaf. I will be in these forms and I will say hello to you. If you are attentive enough, you will recognize me and you may greet me. I will be very happy. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll say hello to you. and I actually am you.
Korin, I thought your talk was really powerful, and it's still percolating through me. I'm integrating it. It's hard to actually say anything about it for me, because there's so many aspects that are flowing through me. But I will comment on one of them. You said something along the lines of intimacy itself is the process of inquiry. And I wonder if you could say a little bit more about that, because I find in my life, and I think in other people's lives as well, that intimacy is something that I crave and I fear in the extreme. Like, it challenges my small self, and it's liberating. So both of those things. So I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about that.
I feel like what I'm trying to point to there is just the quality of that that intimacy or becoming close is like there's an opening. You're not going to get close if you're closed. So you're coming closer, and it can be scary, and also you're being vulnerable, and you're actually opening to like what is this, like, so if it's a sensation in my body or a feeling or an emotion or another person, what is the fullness of what I'm meeting, and that the kind of an actual intimate meeting being one where it's a process of opening. Opening. I might have ideas about who this person is, but who can I allow them to be just completely what they are right now, which isn't going to be exactly my ideas, or maybe even close to my ideas. And likewise, it could be with what's happening in my body or in my emotions, and so work. This is also, I think it's fearful because it is working with all of our defensive mechanisms. All the ways we're defended or insulated or enclosed. We're actively feeling through those and allowing them to release, or not have so much energy being poured into them.
Yeah, I think one thing that you're saying that brings up for me is it's a feeling that I will be overwhelmed. And it's actually, that's the reality. I will be overwhelmed. It's just maybe not what I think it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's another one where it's really good to have this curiosity. What is my fear of being overwhelmed? What is overwhelmed? How much of being overwhelmed is a problem, aside from me trying to control my life.
Oh, that little thing.
I feel like I get overwhelmed when I'm trying to control myself, and then someone else is trying to do something. I'm trying to control them, and now I'm like, I'm trying to control too many things.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Your beautiful talk, Thich Nhat Hanh, brings up the idea for me of welcoming the unexplained. And I guess it was 20 years ago, I was at Spirit Rock when Thich Nhat Hanh was there. And we were all walking, and there was hundreds and hundreds of us, maybe even 1,000. And I was way at the back. And there was this, Thich Nhat Hanh was walking up kind of slope and holding the hands of children. And, for me, it was just an incredible sensory moment. It's like I was, as intimate as standing next to him, but I was so far away. And that moment, is something that has always stayed, with me through all the years, that the power of that moment, or the impression, I don't know what to call it, it isn't really words that explain it. And your talk, just talks of that, the non-duality. There's the being with the people and being at that place and being in the presence and all the phenomenon of that. And then there's this moment that is very transformative in some way and not able to be explained.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you. Alrighty. Maybe that's good for today. It's 11:30. Thank you all very much. So let's see. I put the 4 vows in the chat. For great Bodhisattva vows.
I vow to freedom.
Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to do that. Dharma gates are confident. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is boundless. I vow to realize it.